Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to talk about something that's going to be really tricky to define. No, we're not talking about an electron in Schrodinger's equation, but today we're going to talk about education before I lose my voice. So for the past 3 years, I've been really going head deep into this process of figuring out what exactly is education, what is this process for, and how do we derive joy, or how do we exactly derive more satisfaction out of this journey. And eventually I decided that there's no point coming up with a universal concept or universal law for the purpose of education. Every one of us, we've got our own little thing going on. We've got our own little operations happening. Some people get educated to become doctors. Some other people, they study to earn more money in the future. But for a humanities nutcase like myself, and maybe as you're watching this video, you're also a nutcase in the humanities. What is education then for us? Because it's not exactly that easy to define for someone like us. Because on one hand, we know way too well that our degree doesn't really translate directly into a career path. On the other hand, we're kind of aware that many arts degree students end up at Starbucks. We know that we don't really fit into the mold of, what society wants us to fit in. We're still very passionate about our subjects. So what is the definition of education for humanities students? What is this entire process for? For that, we have to consult some ancient sources, if you don't mind. As I was listening to one of my history lectures for my Renaissance history unit, I found a term that basically perfectly described the process of education for humanities students. This term was coined by Cicero, and it is Studia Humanitatis. Direct translation means the study of the humanities. So Studia Humanitatis really became a symbol for the Italian Renaissance. It became a very prevalent intellectual culture throughout that period. Notable statesmen, noted politicians, they've all had this process done to them by their schoolmasters. And Studia Humanitatis isn't exactly a process nor a curriculum per se. It's this overall idea that if you want to learn about the world, if you want to learn something about yourself that's very sacred and that's very meaningful, you ought to consult the lessons of the past. So during the Italian Renaissance, this process looked a lot like studying a lot of the sources from antiquity. The writings of Cicero, the dramas by Seneca, all that kind of good stuff in the original Latin language. So basically you have this very prevalent cultural force, which is really advocating people to go back into the ancient sources and to derive wisdom out of the ancient sources. Because as you're living, you can't see far ahead of yourself. You can't really project into the future. The future is kind of dark, but the past, if you can see specific connections, if you can see relevant details, you can actually tease out some pretty useful lessons from the past. And this is sort of the idea that really inspired me to study the humanities. And there definitely are lessons to be learned from these ancient writings. There are definitely lessons to be learned from this very old-sounding books. For example, Homer's Iliad, Ovid's Metamorphoses, and stuff like Plato's The Republic. Throughout the Renaissance, these people were mad about these books. Throughout the Renaissance, these people read these books like there's no tomorrow. So this is for the humanities students of year 2020 or of the 21st century. Don't feel bad about being an alien because maybe right now you're studying a degree in literature or in history. Don't feel bad about pursuing what you love because this is a long-standing tradition that you're a part of. This is a long-standing thing. We've been doing this as human beings forever. This very utilitarian sort of pursuing money and pursuing hyper-productivity, this is a rather recent development. Whereas Studia Humanitatis, this is a long-standing tradition. This is a very sort of a current of cultural movement that was prevalent throughout the Renaissance. And it wouldn't really hurt for us to take a look at the process of getting a very humanist education through the same lens. We're sort of standing on the shoulders of giants here. And this is one incredibly exciting journey. And as I'm recording this video, I've applied to transfer from my current university to the University of Melbourne. Here's my reasoning behind it. Melbourne University is the only university here in Melbourne that actually offers a full-blown classical education. They teach Latin and they teach Greek and they teach, all sorts of cool stuff there. The reason why I didn't exactly apply for the University of Melbourne at the get-go was because I had 2 jobs tying me down right here at the place where I'm living right now. I thought studying literature and studying theater and studying French, I thought that was going to be a pretty good substitute for my real love for the classics, but that, it wasn't really the case. There was always a part that was kind of missing. There was always a part that I didn't exactly feel happy about, but I didn't exactly know what it was. And it wasn't until recently had I realized that I just really want to learn Latin and I really want to learn ancient Greek. And that sort of in turn led to this decision of transferring over. Starting in 2021, I am going to pursue Studia Humanitatis in the most original sense. That's basically where I'm going in the future. I am going to become a classicist. Nothing's really set in stone yet, but I'm really excited to share each step of the process. Anyway, that's all I have for this week. Hope you guys are having a great week, and I will be signing off right about now.